Molly Bish disappeared on Tuesday, June 27th, 2000. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Molly Bish's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. One summer morning, a 16-year-old girl reports for her lifeguard job.
Molly had studied to be a lifeguard all winter.
She had big dreams and she was delighted. It was just a good job that she could do.
But minutes later, she vanishes.
We would have never sent Molly there if we thought she would be in any kind of danger.
Was Molly abducted? And was it the same predator responsible for another young girl's disappearance?
She was blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and she was visiting her grandmother when she was taken.
Will Molly's loved ones ever get answers? A family's torment.
We're like trapped in this perpetual nightmare.
I call it between Helen and hope.
It's late June 2000, and 16-year-old Molly Bish is excited about her new summer job. She is taking over her older brother's position as the lifeguard on duty at Cummins Pond in her hometown of Warren, Massachusetts.
My son John had been a lifeguard for 3 years in our local pond, so they were willing to have Molly come on, and John was training her.
I trained her how to use the radio and how to set the pond up in the beginning of the year and stuff like that.
Located 70 miles outside of Boston, Warren is a small town where doors are left unlocked and neighbors keep an eye out for one another's children.
It's a very lovely town. My husband grew up here, and we thought it would be a really nice place to raise children.
The Bish family is a very respected family in the town of Warren.
They're really the all-American family living in a bucolic community in central Massachusetts.
John was a probation officer. Maggie was an elementary school teacher.
The Bishes are an unusually tight-knit family.
I think we're very fortunate just that my parents are still together and we have a close bond with my sisters.
We were just very close. We only had each other growing up, so we just played together. We made forts together.
I go to Molly's soccer games. She would come to mine. It's just we always were together.
Molly is the youngest child and an accomplished athlete. She plays soccer, basketball, and softball at the local high school, where she is also an honor roll student.
She's already talking about going to college, you know, and wanted to work with children.
Molly is outgoing and a popular kid. Recently, she'd started dating a boy named Steve Lucas, and at the end of the school year, they attended the prom together. School has been out for a couple of weeks, and what is supposed to be a carefree season for Molly and her friends begins with a troubling event. One of Molly's soccer teammates is hit by a car while riding her bike to work and is in critical condition. Word of the accident spreads throughout the town. It's early Tuesday morning and Molly's 8th day of work when the Bish family receives the news of Molly's friend.
We were just so frightened when we heard this news, so I went to Mom. I got her bed. And I told her that her friend was hit by a car.
Even though Molly is upset, it's an important day down at the pond. The summer's first day of swim lessons, which means she has a lot of responsibility as the lifeguard on duty. Molly is running late and must get to work. Maggie goes along for the ride.
Molly was driving at that time because in Massachusetts you have to be 16 and a half to get a license.
Molly and her mom make a quick stop at the local convenience store to pick up some bottles of water. The store's video surveillance system captures the two women making their purchases and shows them leaving at 9:50 a.m. Next, they drive over to the police station, where Molly picks up her required two-way radio before heading to Cummins Pond.
Cummins Pond is a small, man-made pond surrounded by woods. It is an isolated swimming area. If you didn't know where it is, you wouldn't get there.
At the Cummings Pond beach area, there's no telephones or communications other than the lifeguard was given a portable radio from the police department in case of an emergency.
Molly and Maggie pull up to the pond, just in time for Molly's shift to begin.
So she just turned to me and said, I gotta go, Mom, I love you.
Minutes after Maggie leaves her daughter at the pond, the first swimmers start to arrive for their lessons.
The first parent that came to the scene saw that the lifeguard wasn't present, but did see that the lifeguard's chair was set up, the whistle was wound around the arm of the chair, pair of sandals were on the ground.
All of Molly's belongings are exactly where they are supposed to be, but mysteriously, her first aid kit is left open, and Molly is nowhere to be found.
There was no speculation about why she was not at her post early on.
Swimming lessons begin, and a local mother takes Molly's whistle and assumes her post.
The original thought was that a 16-year-old girl might have just walked off with her friends.
The mother decides to inform the head of the Parks Commission, Ed Fett, who is Molly's boss, that the teenager is not in the area and is neglecting her job as the lifeguard on duty. Fett reports this behavior to the Warren local police.
Molly's boss, Ed Fett, uses the two-way radio and tells them that she's nowhere to be found.
He made a call to the police department at 11:44 a.m. stating that the lifeguard was missing from Cummings Pond.
The police assume that Molly is ditching work to hang out with friends, or perhaps her boyfriend.
There was some speculation early on that Molly had gone off with somebody and was someplace around the pond and being inattentive to her duties.
3 hours pass, and Molly does not return to the pond. The police decide to notify Molly's parents of their daughter's absence from work.
I got a call at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was our police chief. And he had said to me, where's Molly? And I said, what do you mean, where's Molly? I dropped her off at work. He says, she's not here.
Coming up, the search for Molly Bish gets underway, and her family begins to panic.
We sat in terror, and your whole world has fallen apart.
16-year-old Molly Bish reports for her summer job as a lifeguard at the town pond. But in an instant, she is nowhere to be found. After 2 hours with no lifeguard on duty, Molly's boss contacts the local police. When they check with Maggie Bish on the whereabouts of her daughter, she is shocked to hear Molly is not at work.
I just knew it in my heart. I had this horrendous fear right from the moment I got that call.
Maggie hangs up and immediately calls her older daughter Heather to explain the situation.
I received a phone call from my mother saying that Molly wasn't at the pond, and it just seemed kind of funny, and we were saying, well, where could she possibly be? It just seemed strange that she wouldn't be there.
Alarms went off. My children have always been responsible. We just knew something wasn't right.
Molly's mother and sister agree to meet at the police station and try to make sense of her bizarre disappearance. But at the station, police still believe there is nothing to be concerned about.
In the early portions of this investigation, there was a lot of different theories. One being that Molly was upset about her friend being in critical condition at the hospital. She might have hooked up with some other friends and went down to visit her.
Molly's family checks to see if anyone visited the hospital.
So I went to Molly's friends' houses. Nobody had heard from her, so I went to her new boyfriend's house.
When Heather arrives at Steve Lucas's house, he is just waking up for the day. He tells Heather that he hasn't heard from Molly either, but he's not too concerned. The two drive to the pond to meet Molly's mom and the police. The eerie sight of Molly's things neatly arranged by the side of the pond makes Maggie hysterical.
I see her shoes. Why would she leave and go with anybody if her shoes are here and if her friends are here? Where's Mom?
We were very confused. She definitely wouldn't have gone anywhere without her shoes on.
Maggie argues with the local police that leaving work without notifying anyone is completely out of character for Molly.
Molly was very conscientious. She would have never left her job. She was very worried about the kids starting swimming lessons. They sort of were under this concept that she had taken off with her friends, but really had no indication of that.
I would never think that. She doesn't have a car, and she's in her bathing suit.
None of it made sense to us.
The local police begin to think that the Bishes may be right, and they call in the state police to assist in the matter.
The Warren Police Department didn't really have a lot of experience dealing with missing persons cases. That's why the Massachusetts State Police came into the case.
By this time, things are getting into overdrive.
The whole scene area was pretty dramatic. There was a lot of the local police that arrived on scene. The local fire department arrived. State police from the local barracks out of Brookfield responded. State police detectives were responding.
The police are all there. No one knows where she is.
State officials start to consider a troubling but logical explanation for Molly's disappearance. That Molly may have drowned. This would explain why her shoes were still on the beach. But no one in the family thinks it's very likely that Molly, a lifeguard and an athlete, has drowned.
I knew right then and there that this is not what had happened. Molly was the best swimmer in her class.
I knew that she wasn't in that water. I just knew it. And my brother was just so devastated. He came running. We were just all so confused with what was happening.
Even though John also knows his sister is a strong swimmer, he runs directly into the water.
So I continue to beeline to the pond to search. And I went in swimming and searching for her. But I knew she wasn't there. Searched and searched and searched until they got me out of there. And I knew it wasn't good, but I had to find out.
They pulled John out of the water and said, "You can't search for her."
A dive team assembles to thoroughly search the murky waters of Cummins Pond.
At this point, it was more of a recovery effort to see that if she was in the bottom of the pond, no one thinking that she wouldn't be found in that area.
Boats are launched. Police and firemen are in the boats. Divers are also deployed. They were at the pond in the water for several hours.
As it started to get dark, you're just sort of taken out of that place, and you're in this disbelief that this is actually happening.
As night falls over the town of Warren, officials bring in lights to continue searching the area.
Search teams, although small at that time, had commenced searching the area of the pond itself in the wooded areas adjacent to the pond.
I just kept waiting for Molly to come out of the woods, or someone was going to carry her out, and that terror would be gone. It didn't happen.
After hours of scouring the pond and the surrounding area, both the dive team and search parties come up empty-handed.
And they decided that it was time to leave the pond.
Police organize a larger search party for first thing in the morning, and the Bishes, bereft and exhausted, must return home without Molly. The horrific reality that Molly has truly disappeared starts to set in.
Going home that first night was just a nightmare.
We sat in terror. You know, we didn't know what was happening, and your whole world has fallen apart.
Early the next morning, the search for Molly continues throughout the area.
The search began to grow almost immediately.
Law enforcement deployed a lot of resources. And we're talking about the daughter of a probation officer.
We deployed all resources, including our mounted units came to the area. We had our State Police Air Wing, which is our helicopters, brought into the area, using both infrared and camera imaging to look at the forested areas off the center of town.
The close community of Warren pitches in as well. Local proprietors quickly print and display missing person posters in their storefronts, and townspeople initiate their own search parties.
We grew up in that concept that it takes a village to raise a child, and we were trying to find this child. And so everybody kind of went out and started looking in places that they thought might be remote areas or dangerous areas.
You can't just sit around. You feel helplessness. So my friends and I got together, drove around. I mean, we're in a huge area of wilderness out here. I mean, trails on top of trails on top of trails.
The main trail from the beach where Molly disappears comes to a fork. One trail goes further into the forest. The other leads to a cemetery, where a paved entranceway piques investigators' interest.
There is a footpath that leads directly from the beach to the cemetery. So one of the theories was that if someone came to abduct Molly, they could easily take her out through the wooded area to the vehicle in the cemetery without being detected or seen.
The theory of abduction is now becoming a real possibility for the Massachusetts State Police. Judging from the open first aid kit, the police speculate that someone may have faked an injury, and when Molly bent over to open the kit, he grabbed her. They share this possibility with the Bish family.
From that moment on, it just kind of seemed like you were in a bad movie, and you couldn't get out.
Upon hearing the possibility that her worst fear may be true, Maggie comes to a chilling revelation. She thinks she knows who could have done this. Coming up, the search for a suspicious mystery man.
And I'm thinking, what is this man doing here? Why isn't he working? Why isn't he at a job? You know, it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
"16-year-old Molly Bish is missing from her lifeguard job in Warren, Massachusetts. The authorities now believe Molly could have been abducted by a predator. Molly's mom, Maggie Bish, remembers seeing a suspicious man at the pond the day before Molly disappeared. That day started out as an ordinary morning for the Bish family. Maggie drove with Molly to her job at the pond.
Molly was driving and I was in the passenger side, and we pulled in. And there was a white car sitting there.
Maggie watched as Molly left the car and waited to see her safely reach her post. But she noticed there was someone else watching Molly as well. A suspicious man parked in the white vehicle next to her.
Looked at the gentleman in the car, and just one of those feelings you get sometimes.
This individual appeared to be glaring at her, and she was very uncomfortable.
And I'm thinking, what is this man doing here? You know, why isn't he working? Why isn't he at a job? You know, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So I just said, I'm gonna check on Molly's date.
Maggie headed over to Molly and stayed with her daughter while she organized her station.
So I'm saying, what a pretty place it is. But I just said to her, I didn't realize there were so many men around, and I was a little concerned. But she says, oh, it's just fishermen, Mom. You know, no big deal.
After chatting for a few minutes, Maggie headed back to her car.
And that same person is still there, and all he's doing is smoking a cigarette. And he's staring at me, and I just got this very nervous feeling. So I said, I can't leave Molly here.
Maggie fussed around in her car, hoping to appear busy to the stranger while waiting for him to leave. And finally, he started his car and pulled away.
And for a second I sat and I thought, oh, I'm just being silly. I'm overly worried.
But now, she realizes those fears may have been more than just a mother's intuition. Her daughter is missing. And even though she did not see this man the day of Molly's disappearance, she believes he might have something to do with it. Maggie informs police about the mysterious man from the previous day.
Maggie described this individual as approximately 50 years old with salt and pepper hair. He also had dark eyes, he had a mustache, and he was smoking a cigarette.
She works with a sketch artist and comes up with an image of the suspect.
When I saw the composite, it was scary, you know, just the eyes. I didn't recognize the gentleman as being there before at the pond.
A roadblock was set up, and one of the questions was, did you see any people in a white vehicle?
Witnesses around Warren confirmed that they too saw a suspicious man in a white vehicle.
There was reports from cemetery workers of a white car being seen on previous days up in the cemetery area.
But no one has any more detailed information. Police circulate the sketch of Maggie Bish's suspicious man. It receives so much publicity that people from all over the country are calling in with tips about the man's identity.
It was a lead that the police began following aggressively.
Unfortunately, the composite fit a lot of people. This developed into thousands of leads. We even had callers calling in to say if you dyed his hair or shaved the mustache or made him 10 years younger, they were trying to make that picture fit someone that they felt was a suspect in this case.
Every tip the police receive leads to a new suspect they must check out.
It cost us a lot of lost time and leads that we were actually checking out these people.
It's almost like we had too many suspects, if that is possible to comprehend. There were just so many people that we were looking at that could have been involved.
The district attorney's office orders a search of 125 white vehicles in the area.
We could not determine for sure what type of vehicle Maggie had observed.
But they don't find any links to the disappearance of Molly Bish. While the investigation continues, Police comb the area surrounding the pond, looking for any new leads. But they face a daunting problem. The crime scene is contaminated.
Inadvertently, all of the first responders contaminated whatever footwear impressions were around the immediate area of where her beach chair had been set up. It was hard to determine that this was actually a crime scene at that point. Anybody responding was there to help and try to find Molly at that point. The path that went up to the cemetery area was used and accessible by hundreds of people that had responded to the pond on that date.
The beach area is also covered with cigarette butts and fingerprints.
The lifeguard's chair was moved a little bit. The portable radio was handled by Ed Fett. There was fingerprints that were in the first aid kit that belonged to people that were first responders to that scene.
This leaves police with no concrete evidence. And since there are no eyewitnesses, police can't rule out any possibility, including the heartbreaking notion that Molly simply took off voluntarily.
One of the theories that existed throughout was the fact that Molly could have simply ran away. Molly was reported sighted throughout the United States. People would call and say they spotted Molly at a shopping mall in the Midwest.
I think at first the runaway is very easy for teenagers because it's just the easiest. She'll come back, and some of them told us that, and they believed it. She'll come back.
But the Bish family finds it unfathomable that Molly would leave them without word.
In my heart, I never went in that way because I just didn't believe it.
They firmly believe that Molly was taken against her will, possibly by the man in the white car. But if Molly has fallen victim to foul play, police also think there is a possibility that she could have known her attacker.
We looked at a lot of people that knew Molly. We looked at people in the area.
Ed Fett, Molly's boss, was one of the first to arrive at the pond the day Molly went missing. His fingerprints are all over Molly's belongings.
To be honest, I didn't know him. He had brought a book up for Molly to look at swimsuits and some supplies.
Fett explains that he rummaged through the first aid kit and used her police radio to alert authorities. Police recognize that there may be no meaning behind the fingerprints, but take a closer look at Fett. The morning of Molly's disappearance, Ed Fett made a trip to the local hardware store. There, he runs into John Bish, Molly's older brother.
He knows me. He knows I was the lifeguard for prior 3 years. He knows my sister was a lifeguard.
Fett does not mention that Molly was missing from work that day.
So he didn't even notify me because I don't think he thought it was a big deal. You know, everybody thinks this is nothing.
The police consider this run-in a solid alibi for Ed Fett's whereabouts that morning, so they move on to other potential people of interest. They turn their attention to Molly's boyfriend, Steve Lucas, who is found to have a mysterious cut on his face the day of the disappearance. Coming up, a strange connection is made between Molly's disappearance and another local case.
Given the close proximity to these two cases, there's a possibility
16-year-old Molly Bish vanished from her lifeguard chair just minutes after her mother Maggie dropped her off at work. Maggie had seen a suspicious man in a white vehicle watching her daughter the previous day and believes he has something to do with her disappearance. But while the police are exploring that theory, they also take a look at people closest to Molly, including her boyfriend, Steve Lucas.
Steve Lucas was examined because this is what typically happens. Law enforcement looks at men in the lives of women who go missing.
He was a very new boyfriend. She had only been with him for 3 months.
Recently, Molly attended the prom with Steve. And while some believe the couple seemed happy, others felt they were mismatched.
He was quieter. He was actually much quieter, where Molly would be the silly one.
Molly and Steve kind of had two separate tracks in life, where Molly was very outgoing and played sports in soccer and stuff in town, and Steve was more of a homebody.
This young man, he probably wouldn't have been the one that I would have picked, but Molly liked him for some reason. He was never unkind or disrespectful when he came here, so I have no real reason not to like him.
The police start honing in on Steve Lucas as a suspect.
There were things that bothered me in the early onset of this investigation with Steve, for the simple reason that he was not cooperative with law enforcement.
When the police do talk to Lucas on the day Molly disappears, they notice that he has a cut on his face.
He had a cut lip and he had an eyebrow ring that was missing. Steve explained that when he got up out of bed, he had hit his bedroom door, cutting his lip. Several of his friends had described it as other causes for the incident. One individual we interviewed said that Steve immediately told him that he had a cold sore on his lip.
Steve's inconsistent explanations for his injury raise questions, and his behavior during the initial search for Molly also strikes investigators as odd.
A lot of Molly's friends and friends of Steve Lucas that were there at the beach area when it was being searched participated in the search. They went into the woods. Steve was not participating in any of the ongoing searches in the area for Molly.
But the Bish family doesn't believe Steve had anything to do with Molly's disappearance.
He was there the day, several hours after. If a 17-year-old boy place a body in 2 hours and come back and go around the family, then, you know, he's obviously a great sociopath.
Molly's loved ones feel certain that if Molly's been abducted, it was not the act of a teenage boy, but rather a well-thought-out plan by a calculating predator.
We are looking for a suspect who knew the pond, who knew the fishing area. Molly had only been at her position as a lifeguard for 8 days, so they had to know her schedule.
I think in some ways Molly maybe gave us a hint. It was a fisherman, Mom. Maybe it was somebody who's seen her and seen her long legs.
Although the police still have their doubts about Steve Lucas, there is no evidence pointing towards his involvement. They call him in for a polygraph.
Polygraph results, as was told to me, was that Steve had passed the polygraph examination.
Investigators then decide to concentrate on the area's local sex offenders.
There are a disproportionate number of sex offenders that just happen to live in the area.
They check with these men for alibis.
A lot of the sex offenders in this area are not gainfully employed. It was hard for us to determine their whereabouts on June 27th because we didn't have like payroll records to look at, telephone records that could actually vouch for these individuals. You had to basically go on their word.
So the state police call several of them into the station to take polygraphs. Some of them show signs of deception.
Signs of deception do not show that that person was responsible for the disappearance of Molly Bish. It would just cause for more examination into that individual's history, background, and whereabouts. All it did was add to our list of people in the database.
With each passing day, the police database of suspicious characters is growing, but all to no avail. The Bishes are fighting to stay hopeful. Despite so many potential leads, the Molly Bish case becomes one of the most challenging missing person cases the local and state police have faced. It seems that 16-year-old Molly has vanished without a trace or become the victim of the perfect crime.
The state police basically spent 24/7 on site. We would go home, we would change, we would refresh, we'd put a fresh set of clothes on, shower and shave, and go right back to the town of Warren to continue the investigation.
The Warren Police Station becomes headquarters for the investigation. State police officers are practically living there. And as the months pass, the Bish family tries to go back to some semblance of a normal life.
To start your normal life again, which will never be normal again. It was hard.
We're like trapped in this perpetual nightmare, and it's almost unreal. It's like your brain takes you to a different place so you can just survive.
We just kept trying to live through all those simple things. The first Christmas, her birthday came. How do you have a birthday when she's not there? And I mean, there were days I had to just pray and try to keep the demons out of my head because they would try to haunt me. I call it between hell and hope.
Eventually, the state police must leave the headquarters at Warren and return home to continue the investigation.
So they moved back to Worcester, and then we said, now what do we do? I mean, the calls got a little bit less.
Although the investigation continues, the Bish family must live without any answers for years.
Over the course of years, there was many different things that we looked at as being investigators, one of which was John Bish being a probation officer. We looked at some of the people that he came in contact with.
Detectives run through Molly's father's old cases to see if there's anyone who might be seeking revenge.
Most of the people that we spoke to that he did have on probation or had on probation had only the best words to say about John. He's very caring, very generous, and very mild-mannered in his approach to individuals.
by the spring of 2003, it's been almost 3 years since Molly Bish disappeared from her summer job as a lifeguard. And still, there are hundreds of tips coming into the police from all over the country. Finally, one of them seems promising.
2 separate hits on Molly being spotted in Miami, Florida.
2 unrelated eyewitnesses calling tips to the Massachusetts State Police. Both put Molly Bish in Miami.
We actually located them to be about a block and a half away. It was a very significant lead for us. We were getting ready to deploy 2 troopers to fly down to Miami to follow up on this lead.
Meanwhile, one man's obsession with a similar case leads to an even bigger break in the Molly Bish investigation. 7 years before Molly vanished, another young blonde girl in a nearby town went missing.
Holly Peranian was a little girl who disappeared in 1993 in Sturbridge, which is a few towns away from Warren. She was blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and she was visiting her grandmother when she was taken.
What had happened is Holly went with her little brother to go down the road to see some new puppies.
But only Holly's brother returned home that day. The only clue that led police to believe Holly had been abducted was her shoe, found by the side of the road.
What do you do? How could that happen? Everybody was so frightened. Nobody knew what had happened.
At the time, Molly Bish was 10 years old, the same age as Holly Peranian. She heard the story of Holly's abduction while attending church one Sunday.
And the priest had suggested writing to the family and sending you prayers. And so Molly wrote this beautiful letter about how she hoped Holly would come home and how much she cared about her, and she was a beautiful child.
Eventually, local hunters found Holly's remains in the woods near where she was abducted. But her killer was never found. In May of 2003, 7 years after Holly's murder, a retired cop who worked the case comes to Warren. He believes there could be a connection between Holly Peranian and Molly Bish.
We have thought that Holly Peranian and Molly's case were connected because of being blonde and blue-eyed, because of the remoteness of where they were taken.
Given the close proximity to these 2 cases, there's a possibility that they were linked.
It just seems kind of weird these, abductions would happen so close.
Because Holly's remains were located by hunters, the ex-cop also questions them.
He said that he was interviewing individuals that frequented the woods in that area.
One local hunter tells him he does remember seeing something suspicious months earlier, but at the time, he thought nothing of it.
And he said, you have to bring me there. I have to see this. This could be, this could be Molly.
They go up to look and discover that this is for real.
What they find is a piece of cloth, which appears to be part of a blue bathing suit. It's the same color suit Molly Bish was wearing 3 years ago on the day she disappeared. Coming up, while the Bish family waits anxiously for answers,
We just need that one break, that one tip.
the investigation moves forward with a new suspect.
His family had a white car when Molly disappeared. He lived down the road from Holly Peranian. He fished at Cummins Pond.
State police are about to deploy detectives to Miami, Florida. They have 2 eyewitnesses claiming to have seen Molly Bish, but they abruptly cancel the trip when a piece of blue bathing suit is discovered in the woods no more than 5 miles from where Molly went missing. It's the same color bathing suit Molly was wearing on that day. Police inform the Bish family of the disturbing discovery.
When they found the bathing suit, you're hoping it wasn't, but you're hoping it was at the same time. Because you want her to be found. You want her to just get some closure. On the other aspect, you don't want it to, because you want that hope to be alive that maybe she is in Florida or California or wherever, Thailand,
Police uncover the bathing suit in the town of Palmer, just outside of Warren. It's found in a heavily wooded area, known only to local hunters, possibly why the evidence has been missed all these years. The only way to determine if the bathing suit actually belongs to Molly is to run DNA tests.
The bathing suit was sent to the state police lab in Massachusetts for testing, both with DNA and physical examination of it. It was also sent to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia.
And while they wait for the results, the Massachusetts State Police launch a major search of the area where the bathing suit was found, hoping to find more evidence.
And that's when the chaos starts again with the searches, and just the manpower that came out was ridiculous. I mean, they pulled recruiters out of the state police, which is 180 men and women, to come search.
They used an anthropological grid, and they broke it down over 500 acres, and they searched shoulder to shoulder, digging through thick underbrush, up steep hills, through bushes and rocks.
This was the largest search in Massachusetts history.
6 days into the search, the DNA results from the suit come back, and they confirm that it belonged to Molly Bish.
I fell to my knees and I cried.
Another harrowing piece of evidence is uncovered 3 weeks later. Police find a human bone belonging to a person between the ages of 14 and 20 years old. And over the course of a week, they recover 26 more bones. Have they finally found Molly?
It was agonizing. You're in another sort of perpetual nightmare because you don't know, but you're having all these pieces of someone coming to you that you think is your sister.
6 days after the first bone was discovered, DNA results confirm what her family already seems to know. The remains belong to Molly Bish. Lead investigator Tom Green delivers the heartbreaking news to the Bish family.
The experience was difficult, and it had mixed emotions, I think, with the Bish family, that number one, they now know what happened to their daughter, but number two, the small, slim chance of hope that she'd be alive or found alive somewhere else in the country were gone.
Molly is buried on August 2nd, 2003, a day that would have been her 20th birthday. While the Bishes finally have a small sense of closure, justice still eludes them. The hope is that the bathing suit and Molly's remains would lead investigators to whoever is responsible for this unconscionable crime. But it's not to be.
The DNA that was uncovered from both the bathing suit and from the skeletal remains all belonged to Molly Bish. We had nothing that would lead us to another suspect.
Like Holly Peranian's case 10 years before, investigators find themselves at a loss, with no other leads to pursue.
We just need that one break, that one tip.
We just believe we owe it to Molly to find her goodness.
The profile of Molly's abductor was white, male, between the ages of 18 and 50, is known to the area, is either a fisherman or a hunter, has a history of violence with women.
But it's a man that police cannot seem to find. So the Bishes hire private detective Tom Shamshak to continue their own investigation. He is an ex-police chief from a neighboring town and a longtime friend of the Bish family. In October 2008, Molly's boyfriend Steve Lucas dies in a car accident without ever knowing who murdered his girlfriend of 8 years ago. That same year, a new suspect comes to light. A man in Florida named Rodney Stanger is arrested for the vicious murder of his girlfriend.
I was immediately struck with the remarkable resemblance between Rodney Stanger's photograph and the composite that had been generated from Maggie Bish.
And a person calls into the Massachusetts District Attorney's Office with information that this Florida man is connected to the disappearance of Molly Bish. Patty Atkins disappeared on June 29, 2001. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Patty Atkins' last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. Single mom Patty Atkins vanishes in the middle of the night and her family fears the worst.
I trusted Patty that she knew this man. You don't think the worst is going to happen. You don't think that's the last time that you're going to speak to your little sister.
Investigators piece together a disturbing picture of her life.
There's something wrong here. It just makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck.
She had said there can't be any paper trail of the money.
But will detectives get the break they need to unravel the mystery?
We checked airlines, we checked passports. We found no evidence of her just taking off.
Patty's loved ones wait for some sign of her, hoping it's not too late.
I don't think she would run away. Nothing would keep her from her daughter. There's no one who could convince me of that.
June 29th, 2001. It's the Friday before July 4th in Marysville, Ohio, about 35 miles north of Columbus. 29-year-old Patty Atkins is looking forward to the week-long vacation known as Shutdown at the Honda factory where she works as an assembly line team leader.
They always shut down the week of 4th of July, and she was supposed to be going away on a trip with a coworker.
Her sisters remember Patty describing plans to go to Canada with an employee Patty says she has been involved with for a couple of years.
She told me, he really wants to take me up there. It's really pretty, and, you know, it'll just be our chance to be away from everything.
She was excited about her trip with her boyfriend. She was head over heels in love with this man.
Patty has worked as a Honda associate, as employees are called, since she was 19. One of the few women on the assembly line, she's hoping to get a promotion in the next few months.
Patty loved working at Honda. She had started at the bottom and worked her way up. Patty was good with people. She was excited about a test that she was taking to advance. She was ready for the next level of leadership.
When Patty isn't working, she dotes on her 7-year-old daughter, McKaylee.
For her birthday party, she had a slumber party, and Patty would dance with them and just have fun with her, snuggle with her. I can't think of anything she wouldn't have done for her. She adored her. She adored her, loved her so much. And McKaylee adored her mom just as much as her mom adored her.
Patty loved being a mother, and I loved seeing her smile when she looked at McKaylee.
Her sister Marcia recalls Patty planning the future she would build for McKaylee with the new man in her life.
She had talked to me about where they would live and that they talked about wanting more kids.
Patty, the youngest of 5 siblings, wasn't known to fall for guys easily.
Patty was independent. She was not one of those people who was never okay without a boyfriend. She wasn't willing to give up time with her daughter. It was uncharacteristic of her to be that trusting of a man.
That Friday, June 29th, in preparation for her trip, Patty brings McKaylee to stay with her ex-husband.
She was supposed to leave Friday night right after work. I was to get my niece Wednesday, and then Patty would be coming to my house to pick up McKaylee on Sunday, July 8th, around noon.
Before heading to her 3:30 to midnight shift at Honda, Patty brings her pets to the vet to be boarded for the week. Since she and Marcia usually speak every day, Patty calls her sister one last time before her trip.
She was supposed to be going to a remote part of Canada, not in phone service area, so she wouldn't be able to call. She left me a message and said, I'll try to stop on the road, but if I don't talk to you, I'll just see you on Sunday. Kiss, kiss, I love my sis. That's just a thing my sister and I always said to each other. Kiss, kiss, I love my sis. That's how we said goodbye to each other.
It's the last shift before the week-long vacation. Patty has told her sister that she plans to drive straight from work to a cabin in Canada with her boyfriend in his pickup truck. When the shift ends, hundreds of Honda associates dash out of work, eager to begin their vacations. At 19 seconds past midnight, Patty Atkins clocks out of her shift and disappears. On Sunday, July 8th at noon, while McKaylee is playing, Marcia expects Patty to pick her up after the trip to Canada. But Patty doesn't arrive.
Hi. Called her house and left a message on the answer machine. That was around 12:30. When she didn't pick up, I guess I was just thinking they were running late.
Marcia is puzzled. It's not like Patty to be late without calling.
Called again at 1, 1:30, half-hour increments that turned into 15-minute increments that turned into 5-minute increments. I was calling my sister, just repeat dialing. More time passed. I kept calling her house. She still didn't answer.
Marcia begins to worry. She calls the man Patty had said she was going away with. A woman answers the phone. It's not Patty. Coming up, did Patty ever make it to Canada?
I said, what did you do to her? I can't believe you're saying you don't know her.
Just after midnight on Friday, June 29th, 2001, Patty Atkins clocks out at the Honda factory in Marysville, Ohio, and vanishes. Patty had arranged to pick up her 7-year-old daughter, McKaylee, from her sister Marcia's house on Sunday, July 8th. When Patty doesn't arrive, Marcia calls her house. After a couple of hours, Marcia finally calls the man Patty said she was going away with. When a woman picks up the phone, Marcia isn't surprised. She knows it's the man's wife.
Patty had told me about someone who she was talking to at work, how much she liked, talking to him. He was so funny and things like that. And then spilled the beans that he was married, that he had a wife and kids. And I was like, oh, no, you don't want that.
Marcia remembers Patty describing why she felt so strongly about continuing a relationship with this married man.
Their relationship was more to her like this soulmate thing, being able to talk to him and tell him anything. All she ever talked about is they would just have these long talks and he'd make her laugh. I think she thought that they would actually be married. To me, she had plans of a future with him.
From the information that he had given her, she didn't think she was breaking up a good thing. She thinks she just happened to come in on something that was bad. It was going to break up anyways. I don't think if they had a good marriage, Patty would have pursued it.
Patty's sisters made it clear they didn't approve of her seeing a married man.
I told her I thought she was being naive. People get played all the time. They always say they're going to leave their wives, and they don't, and you're just the mistress. But she felt like she had this incredible connection with him.
Marcia and Janine began to realize that talking their strong-willed little sister out of this romance was a losing battle.
I recall myself saying, well, if he's having an affair with you, what makes you think he's not going to do the same thing to you? And, he loves me and he wouldn't do that to me. She'd already made up her mind, and I just let it go, decided not to be judgmental.
She just basically brushed me off as you just don't know him. That she knew better, that I should trust her judgment.
Patty's vision of a future with her soulmate led her to give him more than just her heart, as her friends and family would soon learn. In July of 2000, 1 year before Patty disappears, she visited her sister Janine in Miami, Florida. Patty had just recently told Janine she was involved with this married coworker when she revealed more surprising news on their way to get him a gift at the Hard Rock Cafe.
She wanted to get him a t-shirt from the Hard Rock. And then she started talking more about their future plans together, that he owned a business with his brother-in-law, and he was going to sell his share, and it wouldn't be in his name any longer. And that's when he was going to ask his wife for a divorce. And that way she would have no rights to his business.
According to Janine, it was then that Patty shared how she was helping make a future with this man a reality.
Patty told me that she had given him a lot of money. She had already given him maybe $20,000 so that he could pay off the business sooner, and that way they could be together sooner.
Janine tried cautioning Patty, who had been building a nest egg for about 10 years.
I questioned her about that, and she's like, oh yeah, but he'll give me the money back after the divorce. Patty was always pretty good with her money, and it sounded like she had a plan, so I didn't push any further.
Patty's family knew well that she could be as generous as she was strong-willed.
It was shocking the amount of money she was helping him out with, but it was totally characteristic of Patty to help somebody out. To Patty, relationships were more important than any materialistic things. When she decided she loved him, I think she's willing to do anything for him.
When Marcia learned about the loan, she was less diplomatic about her concern.
"What do you mean you're loaning him money? How much money? Are you crazy? You've worked all this time to save all this money, and worked so hard for it."
For every red flag Marcia tried raising, she only heard Patty respond with faith in her happily ever after.
Said to her, "How's he going to pay all of that back?" And she just said he has to start gradually paying it back, kind of how she had lent it to him, not in one big lump sum. She had said he had to start paying that money back in July.
Hours after Patty is supposed to walk through Marcia's front door, and more than a week after she clocked out of her Honda shift, Marcia is asking the wife of her sister's coworker if he's home.
I just said I was inquiring about his business as something that I needed as a potential customer. She said he'd be back later in the afternoon. I thought that was a good thing, because that just meant they weren't back yet.
Marcia calls around to Patty's friends, but no one has heard from her. By 5 o'clock, Marcia is desperate to find Patty. She tries calling the man again. This time, he picks up. But Marcia is stunned by what she says she hears.
I said, "Where's my sister?" "What do you mean?" I said, "Patty, my sister, you guys went away." And he got quiet and got a little bit, I don't know how to describe, just different. "Patty, oh, you mean from Honda?" And just kind of vague. I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about." Stuttering, stammering. I said, "What did you do to her?" Because she left with you. I know she was leaving with you. I can't believe you're saying you don't know her. And then I panicked.
After hearing the man deny any relationship with Patty, Marcia is haunted by concerns she'd had all along about the trip to Canada.
I recall saying that I just really didn't like not being able to hear from her for a whole week. It just didn't sit well with me. Something didn't seem right about it.
Marcia calls her sister Janine, who is visiting their mom in Indiana.
She was really worried. I could hear the concern in her voice. She's like, "Jeannie, Patty hasn't called." It was very unlike Patty. Patty always called to speak to McKaylee the moment she got back.
Since their mother is within earshot, Janine has to break the news about Patty.
I told my mom that Patty hadn't been seen, that we think she was missing. I told Mom what I knew, that she was supposed to go away with her boyfriend to Canada, and she knew immediately it wasn't right. To see your mother learn that news firsthand, the look on her face.
I was bawling and I was sobbing and couldn't even talk. My husband was trying to find out what was wrong with me because I was outside because I didn't want to upset my niece.
At about 7 p.m. on the day Patty was to have picked up McKaylee, her sister Marcia calls the Marysville Police Department to report her sister missing. At 3 o'clock in the morning, sleepless with worry, Marcia calls the man again.
I basically said to the wife that I was Patty's sister. She was supposed to go away with your husband. She's been loaning him money over the past 2 years. She maybe spoke to me for about 15 minutes and then gave the phone to him. He was like, what makes you think that I knew your sister so well? And I just gave him details, things she had said about the trip, gifts she had bought him. I knew that he had a motorcycle. I knew all about his business, knew about his wife, knew about his kids, all these things. He would just ask questions, probing questions. In hindsight, I think they wanted to see how much I knew.
In the moment, Marcia can't fully take in what's happening.
3 o'clock in the morning, I'd cried for probably 10 hours straight. So I wasn't really thinking, why is he asking me this? Later the next day, I was thinking about it. I had a conversation for 45 minutes with this guy and his wife, why did they stay on the phone with me? Because I sure wouldn't.
After hearing the man's denial of any relationship with Patty, Marcia clings to the hope that police will find some evidence linking him to her sister's disappearance.
I don't think she would run away. Nothing would keep her from her daughter. There's no one who could convince me of that.
Coming up, investigators close in on the crucial moment Patty may have disappeared.
They thought that that was different because Patty was always the last one to leave.
In July of 2001, Patty Atkins never arrives to pick up her young daughter, McKaylee. Patty is supposed to be returning from a week in Canada with a married coworker. After Patty's sister Marcia files a missing persons report with the Marysville Police, Detective Jeff Stiers and Lieutenant Jamie Patton from the Union County Sheriff's Office begin working Patty's case. When searching her house for clues, investigators find nothing that indicates what may have happened to Patty.
Nothing was torn up to suggest any sort of foul play. The doors were locked. Car was in the garage. It appeared that in her closets and her drawers, all her clothes was there. It told me that whether she walked away or it was foul play, I don't think it happened here. At this point, we had a missing persons report, and we didn't know what we had as far as if a crime had been committed. We took some financial records and Patty's computer for processing.
Detective Stiers interviews Patty's colleagues at Honda, including the team members who worked with Patty the night she disappeared.
That day, she had talked to everybody on her line and made it very clear that she wanted the area cleaned up and everything done so she could leave at midnight. In talking with the associates there, they thought that that was different because Patty was always the last one to leave. I met nobody that was able to tell me that they'd ever seen Patty leave first. So this was different. At midnight, everything was cleaned up. She left the line and was one of the first ones to punch the time clock. She went down the tunnel, she clocked out, got to the top of the stairs. That was the last time she was seen.
When Stiers questions associates, he learns Patty was sometimes seen talking with the married coworker.
They didn't think much about it because in her role as a team leader, it wasn't uncommon for Patty to walk around and talk to people. There was no flirtation around this coworker and reported when talking with the associates.
But detectives get a different picture from a friend of Patty's at Honda. Since the friend doesn't want her name revealed, we'll call her Jane. Jane says Patty confided in her about her relationship with the married coworker.
Patty didn't talk about her personal life a whole lot, except for her close friends. Her friend said that Patty had told her she was being very quiet about this because the guy was married. Not many people knew the details.
Investigators learn that Patty only mentioned getting together with this man a handful of times outside of work.
It appears to be an emotional relationship between the two of them, because if it was physical, there wasn't a lot of it going on. They met, I think, 2 or 3 times. If they met more, she didn't tell anybody about it. The relationship between the two of them is kind of a mystery.
Patty's friend Jane recalls how happy Patty seemed whenever she'd visit the married man on the line, especially as the trip drew closer. It was the same excitement Marcia had seen in her sister. For Marcia, it was clear this trip held greater meaning for Patty than just a relaxing vacation.
In Patty's eyes, it was sort of the beginning of them getting to actually be together. Up to that time, they really didn't spend lots of time together other than seeing each other at work and a handful of times maybe outside of work.
She thought if he was willing to spend a week with her up in Canada, that he must really mean it. He's going to follow through with this. If he's willing to take me and not her and the kids, then he's telling her the truth. He was going to leave his wife. She believes him. So she was excited.
As investigators interview Patty's closest friends and family, They learn that Patty's sisters, her best friend, and Jane were the only people whom Patty told about the trip to Canada. These few confidants tell detectives that the trip Patty described involved some surprising arrangements. Patty told her sister Marcia that she wasn't supposed to pack any clothes.
Supposedly they were going to buy all their stuff there, and I was like, well, if it's so remote, where are you going to buy anything? You know, what about food? Where are you going to sleep? She couldn't even give me a location. Just it was a very remote place in Canada.
Jane recalls Patty's excitement about the trip as they drove to work that Friday.
Patty rode to work with her, leaving her vehicle at home, which she typically did not do. She typically drove herself to work, and the plan was that she would leave after work with this male friend.
Jane says that the alleged boyfriend would use a service truck from his business for the trip. Then, investigators get an important lead.
When shift was over, she was going to clock out just a couple minutes earlier than usual so she could sneak into his truck in the back bed of the truck.
The key to the plan involved something called a tonneau cover, a sturdy cloth that fits over the bed of a pickup truck. Jane tells authorities the same story as Janine, describing how Patty was to hide in the bed of the truck while her married coworker drove a carpool buddy home after work.
Patty was to get underneath that tonneau cover so that her coworker's friend did not know that she was in the back of the truck.
Once he dropped off his friend, she was to join him in the front end of the pickup truck, and they were going to go off to Canada.
Jane believes that Patty considered hiding in the truck to be part of the excitement of their secret trip, trusting they'd be spending their lives together. Patty's sister Janine remembers her reaction to the plan.
That struck me as odd, but she seemed happy and I didn't want to squash it. I trusted Patty that she knew this man. You don't think the worst is going to happen. You don't think that's the last time that you're going to speak to your little sister.
While the sheriff's team look into all possible leads, they now believe it's unlikely that Patty vanished on her own.
We checked airlines, we checked passports, and we found no evidence of her just taking off. Out of all the people that we spoke to, no one mentioned her, wanting to leave.
With Patty's loved ones telling detectives about her travel plans with the married man, as well as the loans and gifts she described giving him, investigators head out to interrogate him and search his property.
All friends of Patty's gave us the same information, not knowing that they had given us the same information. And so that's what made them credible.
Adding all those things up, the money, the relationship, it just makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck that there's something wrong here. A mother just doesn't leave her daughter and run off. Is it possible? Has there been cases of mothers running off and leaving their daughters? Sure, but with all the other factors that we're looking at, good job, promotion, she loved her daughter, it just didn't add up.
Coming up, police may be closing in on finding Patty.
The dogs kind of went nuts over the concrete. That made me hopeful, sick but hopeful.
On July 13th, 2001, 2 weeks after Patty Atkins is last seen, investigators head out to search the property of the married man Patty said she'd been seeing. Detective Jeff Stiers knows that investigators need to verify key information and evidence identified by Patty's friends and family.
We knew about the trip to Canada, all the money, the items that she had purchased for this coworker, such as a Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt. What we were looking for when we went there was anything that would link the coworker to Patty.
When authorities arrive at the man's home, he consents to a search of his property, as well as the business he co-owns in another town. While Lieutenant Patton and other officers head to the business with the man, Detective Stiers stays at the house to search the property and interview his wife.
She did not seem to have any knowledge of Patty Atkins. She denied him having an affair with Patty, said that it wasn't possible, you know. He goes to work, he comes home after work every night.
The wife tells police her husband came home the night Patty disappeared at about 2:30 a.m. She says he was home that week, doing projects around their property with a friend. As police begin searching, the man's wife leads them to a potential clue. It looks like the gift Patty got for the man in Miami.
We found the Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt. I don't believe the wife knew where that t-shirt came from.
Investigators' suspicions are heightened. They expand the search.
We brought in a canine, a cadaver dog, and we used that dog to search the property for Patty's body.
Suddenly, the dog begins indicating near some freshly poured concrete by the house garage.
Once that dog alerts, there's a possibility that a body had been laid here or is buried here.
According to the man's wife, it was leftover concrete from a construction project during shutdown week. Police send for a backhoe to begin digging up the spot.
That made me hopeful, sick but hopeful. As much as it sickened me to think of her under there, I wanted her to be found because then it would move the process forward a step. Because you just feel like you're in this constant standstill.
Meanwhile, investigators at the man's business have been questioning him about Patty.
Outside of knowing her at work, he denied any relationship whatsoever with her. He denied having any plans whatsoever to leave out of town with her. He denied accepting any money from her, and he indicated he was happily married and he had no plans of getting a divorce.
According to the man, the Friday that Patty was last seen, he left Honda around midnight with his friend, picked up some fast food, dropped his friend off, and went home. The friend later corroborates his story. Just as his wife tells Detective Stiers, the man says he was nowhere near Canada during shutdown week.
He worked mostly around the house all that week until that Thursday. He went fishing with a couple buddies, but he didn't go out of town any great distance.
He also denies knowing any remote cabin in Canada, leaving investigators unable to pinpoint an area where they might search for Patty. Finally, detectives ask the man about receiving any gifts from Patty.
He denied anything, but then later indicated he may have received a birthday card from her.
The man tells detectives that he ripped up the birthday card, thinking his wife might become jealous. Given that the man tells police he really didn't know Patty, Lieutenant Patton is intrigued by this detail.
I just don't all of a sudden get a birthday card from, somebody at work unless, we're really good friends. Maybe the unit goes together and, gives a birthday card, but individual birthday card in a plant of around 4,000 employees, I would think that would be a little odd if there wasn't more to it.
Investigators spot the business's pickup truck, which Patty had said would be used for the trip to Canada.
When we went to the business and we seen the truck, it had the equipment for a tonneau cover, but it was not on the vehicle, so we knew that we had to search for it.
The man directs authorities to a storage loft, where they find the rolled-up cover. When questioned about it, the man says he ordered the cover a few days before the shutdown holiday began, then picked it up June 29th, the Friday that Patty was last seen.
June 29th, he picked it up early that morning and installed it on his truck. Approximately a week later, the tonneau cover was taken off, and then stored and never put back on the truck after July 6th.
The man tells investigators he'd ordered the tonneau cover to protect his fishing gear. But investigators are curious about the short time span of the cover's use.
It didn't make sense for him to install it and not leave it on. They're not cheap. They're a couple $100.
The manager at the business tells investigators he specifically noticed the arrival of the cover. It had seemed like a strange choice to him.
His service manager indicated that he was surprised that he had purchased this tonneau cover because of what they use that truck for. They run parts, they run radiators, and they haul stuff on it, so it really didn't make sense putting that tonneau cover on that truck.
Authorities take the cover in for forensics testing.
They would look for any trace evidence on the tonneau cover, any foreign type material that's not supposed to be there. Hair fibers, bodily fluid, saliva are some examples.
Back at the man's house, police have dug a hole in the concrete slab where the cadaver dog detected the possible presence of human remains.
We got the call and they didn't find anything. There was no sign of her. That was disappointing. It's like back to square one. No answers. More frustration.
The search effort expands as law enforcement sends teams across several counties to find Patty.
We conducted organized searches with Honda, Marysville Police Department, the Sheriff's Office. We also had volunteers on foot searching. It was a large area.
Patty's family, desperate to find any sign of her, also assembled search parties.
We went up and down railroad tracks and tree line, creeks and trails, little country roads, cornfields, went through lots of fields, just random places. Hot days, lots of bug bites. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, literally.
With no sign of Patty, and the man she called her soulmate denying any affair with her, forensic evidence may be the only way investigators can confirm whether Patty got into his truck that night. Coming up, investigators find evidence that might finally connect Patty with her married coworker.
It puts, in our mind, Patty in that truck, under that tonneau cover.
Patty Atkins' family and loved ones believe the man she said she was having an affair with may be responsible for her disappearance. Investigators searching his business locate the truck covering under which Patty was supposed to have hidden for a secret trip to Canada. Now, as detectives wait for forensic lab results, they review Patty's financial records for some sign of the thousands of dollars in loans her friends and family say she'd been making to him. Investigators find significant withdrawals from her accounts.
$30,000 taken out of a 401k, $25,000 on a second mortgage, cash advances out on her credit cards. She cashed in stock. From around 2000 until 2001, roughly about a year and a half, $90,000 is exactly what we can show she took out.
Yet while authorities can document the money Patty liquidated, when they examine the man's accounts, there's no evidence he received this money from her.
We can show she pulled the money out, but we can't track it from that point on.
I had one time said to her, do you have any kind of proof of it? Or are you keeping like a promissory note? She had said, no, we can't actually sign something because if she finds out, then she'll know, and then he's going to call it off, so there can't be any paper trail.
With still no solid evidence linking Patty to the married coworker, detectives wait for forensic results from the tonneau cover. In the meantime, search teams continue canvassing the area for any leads on the 29-year-old single mom's whereabouts. Patty Atkins has been missing for 5 weeks when the crime lab contacts investigators with a key lead.
Blood was found to be on the underneath side of the tonneau cover, along with cat hair.
Now, detectives need DNA analysis of the blood and cat hair to see if this trace evidence could have come from Patty and her pets. Investigators speculate the cat hair could have rubbed off of Patty's clothing. They send the hair sample to a lab in Texas, one of the few that tests animal DNA. While scientists evaluate the evidence, Patty's family wrestles with questions about what may have happened to her.
Nighttime comes and you try to go to sleep and thoughts start racing in. It's just a crushing pain. Like somebody's squeezing your heart and they won't let go. You know, just think, if you could just get so lucky and actually find something.
Finally, investigators get a break in the case.
The lab down in Texas was able to confirm that some of the hairs taken from the tonneau cover matched Patty's cats.
There's a short window of opportunity that tarp's even on the truck. And then it's rolled up and stored above his office area. So how do you explain Patty's cat hair on the bottom of that tonneau cover? It puts, in our mind, Patty in that truck, under that tonneau cover.
For Patty's family, the news brings bittersweet consolation.
My first reaction was that we had some hard evidence, besides just the hearsay that she had plans with him, that she had a relationship with him. Patty was in the back of that truck, and he definitely knows something that, he's not telling the police.
Investigators and the Union County Prosecutor's Office consider Patty's married coworker to be their main person of interest in what they believe is a homicide case. Meanwhile, investigators have been working to determine whether the blood found on the tonneau cover could be Patty's. The crime lab tells detectives that the blood sample is tiny, just a speck.
How it was described to me is if you would kill a mosquito, the amount of blood that you're going to get out of a mosquito is the amount of blood that was found on the tonneau cover.
Unfortunately, forensics says this presents a problem.
If that sample was tested, it would consume the entire sample.
The crime lab advises Union County Prosecuting Attorney David Phillips that DNA testing on the blood sample might not give conclusive results.
The technicians contacted law enforcement, contacted our office and said, wait, hopefully the forensic technology will enable us to test it with a much higher degree of confidence. And so we waited.
Since forensics technology is constantly evolving, the prosecutor agrees to hold off on testing and wait for more advanced methods.
We could present the case to grand jury, ask them to consider is there sufficient evidence, but you can only try someone once. And so if we found the evidence at a later date, if the evidence showed, yes, that was her blood, we'd never get another opportunity.
Several months after Patty goes missing, Marcia has a candid conversation with Patty's daughter, McKaylee.
She asked me, do you think Mommy died? I said, I think Mommy's in heaven. I think that's the only thing that would keep your Mommy from you.
Brian Barton disappeared on Thursday, March 10th, 2005. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Brian Barton's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. Brian Barton unexpectedly quits his band, and now he has disappeared.
I thought he had set out to kill himself.
And recent events only heighten the mystery.
She came to him and asked him to join the battle of good and evil.
With each passing day, suspicion builds.
Someone in that band knows what happened, and they don't want to share it.
Did Brian Barton disappear to start a new life? Or was he the victim of foul play?
We don't know what happened. We just know we have our son missing, and it's just a tough life.
25-year-old Brian Barton has been playing guitar with his band called As Fate Would Have It for almost a year. Recently, things have started to take off,
It was starting to turn more into like a legit band, you know, and we started playing good shows.
In fact, the band has just won a local contest to perform at their biggest show ever, the Taste of Chaos Festival in Seattle.
Huge. I mean, talking like 6,000 people.
Brian went out and bought like brand new gear, like new amps, new pedals. He was totally stoked on it. He probably blew about, you know, $2 or $3 grand on just pumping up his gear for this specific show.
Brian was very excited. You know, he almost didn't believe it.
Brian Barton was adopted as an infant by Maureen and J.B. Barton. Together with his brothers Stephen and Adam, Brian had a carefree childhood in Vista, California, just outside San Diego.
He was very, you know, outgoing, liked to talk to people, and he was very happy, you know. He just thought life was good and he had a good time.
But in 2001, when Brian was 21, he decided he needed a change. He and his best friend, John Krebs, packed up and moved north to Seattle, Washington, to test their skills in the city's vibrant music scene.
A lot of music comes out of Seattle, so figured it would be a good place to start and try something and see what happened.
The phrase I always remember is he said, "That's where the music scene is, Dad."
Brian was ready to move and get on and see what life held for him, so I was okay with it. Yes, my husband and I said, okay, fine, just keep in touch.
Over the next 4 years, Brian built a name for himself in the local punk rock scene and a serious relationship with his girlfriend, Brianna Duvall.
Brian and I were always friends. I'd say a good, 4 years before we even started dating. So we really didn't have a courtship before we started dating. We just really jumped into it, fell in love really fast, and it was exciting.
The couple quickly decides to move in together. Their new townhouse apartment is in Federal Way, a suburb of Seattle.
In the beginning, when they were all super in love, they would always be in Brian's room, like just avoiding the outside world, just locked in there.
Brian seemed to be in love with Brianna. He called me a couple of weeks before and he said, Mom, all I want is the wife, the kids, the house, the white picket fence.
He proposed 6 months into the relationship, you know, and that was it.
Everything in Brian's life seems to be on track. But by early 2005, Brian's relationship with Brianna, now his fiancée, begins to falter.
Brian and Brianna's relationship was interesting. Definitely had their good times. But there was definitely times where he would be kind of concerned. He was always wondering if she was flirting with the other guys, stuff like that.
According to his bandmates, Brian's relationship problems start to create some tension in the band.
Brian would come to practice upset about this or that, or some argument that they had, and he'd stop practice to go talk on the phone and settle whatever problem was going on at the time.
He really liked her, you know, but she was kind of like young party girl, you know what I mean? Like, you know, not ready to be tied down.
In early March, just 1 week before Brian goes missing, his relationship with Brianna seems to reach its tipping point. Brian's band is playing a show at a bar in nearby Tacoma, and at one point in the night, Brian sees Brianna talking to another guy.
We played the show, and there's like one of her like guys, you know, like this guy that she was friends with, you know, but probably a little too friendly for his comfort level.
Brian immediately approaches Brianna and the friend.
Came up to him and kind of got in his face. And I was kind of like trying to get in between too, like, because I was expecting Brian to throw a blow at him.
Basically caught her trying to hang out with some other guy. So those two were just getting volatile.
Over the next few days, the argument seems to affect Brian deeply.
After that show, Brian started acting strange.
I mean, it was like his personality changed. I mean, and I think his friends were even aware of that.
He just kind of started moping around a little bit more. He just wasn't as happy as he was. It seemed like he needed a change.
Brian seems to be struggling, trying to make a decision about his relationship with Brianna.
The day after the show at the Shipwreck, he came to our house and he He was talking to me and my roommates about how he wanted to break up with Brianna. He seemed pretty upset, and we just kind of tried to talk to him and just make him comfortable and happy. And that's really only what our concern was at that time.
On Tuesday, March 8th, the conflict with Brianna comes to a head.
I was at work and he called me, and it sounded to me like he had had a long discussion with his friends, and he came to the conclusion that we just weren't right together. And we had just moved into that townhome, and I thought that we were on a different part of our relationship, and so it was pretty shocking.
To Brian's bandmates, however, the decision seems like a wise one.
I was relieved because Brian was relieved. That stress, that burden was off his shoulders, and you could tell that he was lighter because of it. And so I thought it was all said and done.
But in reality, Brian is already questioning his decision about Brianna.
He's like, yeah, I got rid of this girl, but like, ugh, I miss her, you know what I mean?
The next evening, on March 9th, Brianna stays home, hoping to patch things up with Brian.
I was beside myself. I was sitting drinking alone, hoping that he would show up and we can discuss it.
When Brian gets home, he and Brianna have a long talk, and they decide to give it another try. A few hours later, Brian calls Dylan, the bass player of his band, and makes a shocking announcement.
He called me and talked to me. He said he wanted to quit the band, and I was like, why? He's trying to say, well, I just don't like the music, but then like the day before, he was just saying it was the best band he was ever in.
Dylan is angry that Brian quit the band, but Brianna is simply confused. According to her, the band was a positive part of Brian's life.
It was bizarre to me because he had just bought all this equipment, and they were talking about going to California and going on some tour, and it was a really cool opportunity, so it was confusing.
To the band, however, it seems clear what has happened.
He chose her over the band.
It was totally over, and then all of a sudden they were back, totally teamed up and against the world.
Later that night, Brian still appears agitated, and then, with Brianna next to him, he makes a strange phone call to his best friend, John Krebs. Brian puts the call on speakerphone so Brianna can hear.
When Brian called us that day, he sounded very neurotic. He was not himself. It sounded like he was trying to get us to say something bad about her so she could hear it come out of our mouths, and he would have a reason not to be friends with us.
Brianna is further confused by Brian's strange and erratic behavior.
It was almost like a setup. It was really bizarre because he's loyal to his friends. He almost wanted me to hear that it's because of them that we broke up, or I don't know. It was bizarre.
Just hours after quitting his band, Brian now tells his friends that he has come to another decision, that he essentially wants to break all ties with them.
He didn't want to hang out with us or see us or, have anything to do with us anymore. And the phone got passed around the room for a couple hours with everyone just trying to calm him down.
His friends think that between the pressures of his band and his relationship, he might be on the verge of a breakdown.
Like, everything was just adding up, and it was just like Brian holding the world, it was just getting too heavy for him.
By the end of the night, Brian seems emotionally drained.
I think he felt alone. He was quiet. He stayed to himself. He slept on the couch and I slept upstairs.
But Brian and Brianna have one last conversation before they go to sleep.
He was crying and just beside himself, but it was something about, I don't think the world understands how much evil is out there, but how many good people still exist.
The next morning, Brianna feels hopeful that Brian's agitation may be subsiding.
So the morning of March 10th, I came downstairs and I saw that he had already gone to work, and I felt good about that. And I was off to work myself.
At Brianna's suggestion, Brian makes an appointment to see a counselor at 4 p.m. that day to talk about his anxieties.
So I was at work, and I called him. He was still at work, and he expressed to me that he was nervous about his counseling appointment. And I said, well, that's natural, and I'm proud of you for, making this move in your life. I think it's going to be really positive. He thanked me for always being there for him. And I said, of course, I love you, and that was it. He didn't say goodbye.
Brianna doesn't know it, But this is the last time she will speak to Brian Barton before he disappears. Coming up, Brianna remembers an ominous conversation she had with Brian just a week earlier about a guardian angel.
But she came to him and asked him to join the battle of good and evil. And I asked him, how would that happen? And he said I would have to die.
Brian Barton's band, called As Fate Would Have It, was about to play the biggest show of their career. Brian should have been savoring the moment, but instead, he unexpectedly quits the band. Now, he's gone to see a counselor at his fiancée Brianna's urging.
I think he struggled with more things than we're aware of, and he just didn't show that vulnerability to anybody.
At 5 p.m., right as his appointment is scheduled to end, Brianna calls Brian to see how things went. But he does not pick up.
I called, and his phone just went to voicemail.
Immediately concerned, Brianna leaves work early and heads home.
And I saw his truck was there, and I was like, oh good, he is home, you know. He is home.
But when Brianna goes inside the apartment, Brian is nowhere to be found.
And so I'm calling people, you know, I'm not highly concerned at this point until like an hour or two has passed. And that's when I was like, okay, well, his truck's out there. And I went and I opened up the truck, and that's where I saw his keys and his cell phone shut off. It was as if he was sitting in his truck and just sat it down.
Growing increasingly distressed, Brianna searches the rest of the apartment for any other sign of Brian.
But then I went upstairs and saw his clothes there, and those were his regular work clothes, and his wallet was in there.
When Brianna checks Brian's wallet, she is shocked by what she finds. Over $800 in cash.
This isn't normal for him. He doesn't leave his money behind. He doesn't leave his life behind like this. Something's going on.
Meanwhile, Brian's band is busy rehearsing for the big show a week later.
And like we were just jammed trying to figure out like how we're gonna do this without Brian. Was Rusty gonna try to play guitar, or was I gonna play guitar?
The band is also trying to reach Brian.
We're gonna call him and like just try to talk him into doing the show. You know what I mean? Like, yo, come on, let's just put our differences aside. You know, we need to play the show.
But their calls, like Brianna's, go straight to Brian's voicemail.
We couldn't get a hold of him, and that was when Brianna called, freaking out, because she was all, you know, Brian's stuff is all here, he's not here, I don't know where he is, can't get a hold of him, he's gone. So me and Ryan took off and went up to Federal Way and went looking for him. We got some flashlights and went, you know, walked around the trails, drove around, you know. There's a lot of little trails in the woods that are out there.
Back at the apartment, Brianna makes another disturbing discovery.
After I saw the wallet, I then was on a rant to see, okay, is everything really here, you know? He wore glasses and then contacts, and so the contacts weren't missing, but he was struggling with sleep as I was, so we had a bottle of Tylenol PM, and that was missing.
Brianna suddenly realizes what the missing bottle could mean.
When I saw the missing bottle, I thought he had set out to kill himself.
She then remembers a disturbing conversation she had with Brian the week before.
We were laying in bed one night, and he just told me that his angel came to him. And I asked him, I was like, oh, that's a weird dream. And he said, no, she came to me. And I said, okay, that scared me. She was very real to him. But she came to him and asked him to join the battle of good and evil. And I asked him, how would that happen? And he said I would have to die.
Brianna has not spoken to Brian since before his 4 o'clock counseling appointment. And now she fears he may have taken his own life. She calls her mother in a panic.
She didn't understand. I mean, it was confusing. She said, I think you need to call the police. And the police initially, they didn't want to file it as missing persons, and that wasn't even what I was wanting. You know, it's like, I just need someone to be aware that something's going on.
And while Brianna talks to the police, Dylan and Ryan continue to comb the woods. But they don't find Brian.
So we did that for the whole night, and we went back to their apartment and stayed there for a night.
The next morning, there is still no sign of Brian, so Brianna calls Brian's parents to break the news. Brian's father, JB, gets the message from Brianna on their answering machine.
I didn't know what to do. I called my wife and told her, and I said, we need to go ahead and find out what's going on.
JB also calls the Federal Way Police to follow up on Brianna's original report.
And they essentially said, you know, he can go missing if he wants. He's allowed to do that.
Police tell the Bartons that they will look into the case and that all they can do for now is hope that Brian turns up. But back in Federal Way, Washington, Brian's friends are coming to their own conclusions. Rusty, the singer of the band, gets an unexpected call from Ryan, the other guitar player, who lived with Brian and Brianna.
And he's like, well, I've been out here all night looking for him, and can't find him, and he left all of his stuff here. I think he's dead.
Rusty immediately questions Ryan's assumption.
My first thought is like, why would you automatically assume he was dead? Could have just gotten angry and, you know, spent the night at a motel or just slept under a rock or something.
Brianna, too, is hoping that Brian has simply walked away. She can even imagine what he might be thinking.
It's like, okay, I'm just gonna get up and go. You know, maybe this life that I started to form here isn't what I wanted, and I'm just gonna create a new one.
But as the weekend passes by with no word from Brian, it's harder and harder to believe there is a reasonable explanation for his disappearance.
We did pretty much everything we could that weekend to try to find him. I realized something was wrong when Sunday rolled around and I still hadn't heard anything.
Coming up, with no sign of Brian, his friends grow suspicious of each other.
I started to think that whatever happened that night, maybe some of my band members were involved in it, and that really freaked me out.
25-year-old Brian Barton has left behind all of his belongings and gone missing. Just before he disappeared, Brian had become extremely upset, breaking up with his fiancée Brianna and quitting his band. And now, his friends and family are left to wonder, did he take off or did he take his own life?
He had definitely come to his boiling point with his life. Something had to give.
Brian has been missing for 4 days. Police support officer Darlene Deo is the first investigator to screen the case, and right away, she takes note of the length of time Brian had been missing before Brianna reported it to police.
Normally, a person would be missing for 8, 10, 12, 24 hours. Then someone would report them missing, especially an adult.
But in this case, Brianna reported Brian missing after just a few hours. This unusual aspect of the report catches Officer Deo's attention.
A flag went off in my head, and I thought, something's wrong here. It just didn't seem to add up to me. It didn't seem like it was as straightforward as it could have been.
Her first move is to contact Brianna, who fills her in on the details of Brian's disappearance.
In Brian Barton's case, there were some really unique circumstances that appeared right off the bat. He left all of his possessions behind. He had cashed his paycheck, his wallet was full of money. Everything that he had was left at the apartment.
Officer Deo also calls the counselor Brian saw the day he disappeared.
And she said that when Brian came in, he was depressed, little he was sad, he was upset. His relationship with his girlfriend was off and on. And he brought up to her that, you know, because he was adopted, maybe that's why he has trouble with relationships.
But before Brian leaves the office, he apparently makes an ominous declaration to the counselor.
Now I know what I have to do. That was the last thing he said to her. Now I know what I have to do. And he left. And who knows what that means?
But as Officer Deo knows, it could simply mean walking away from his problems. According to friends, Brian often talked about leaving his life behind and becoming a drifter.
He talked more and more about, you know, like taking off and getting rid of it, of all of his problems.
His favorite saying was, you know, when time got hard, I'm just gonna go to Mexico and grow bananas, you know. and he was a resourceful guy, and I want to put it past him.
I have to admit there was, in my mind, I thought, well, maybe he isn't, missing forever. Maybe he has just wandered off.
And it wasn't just the pressures of the band and his relationship with Brianna that have been weighing on Brian. Even before the visit to the counselor, Brian had been bringing up the fact that he was adopted, and that one day he would try to meet his biological mother, who lived in Florida.
He was toying with the idea of, hey, if I decide to contact my, birth mother, would you go to Miami with me? And I said, of course, And that was just a month before, and battling kind of the confusion beyond not wanting to hurt his adopted family, but wanting to know who he was.
Officer Deo must consider the possibility that Brian left everything behind to seek out his birth mother. But the idea that Brian just walked away seems far-fetched to some of his friends and family.
Would he leave? Would he do that to his family? Would he do that to his friends? Would he not contact anybody?
He needed people. He liked the people. I don't see how he could just drop everything. I don't think he could do that.
And when Maureen checks with the National Adoption Registry, it appears that Brian has not contacted his biological mother, which seems to rule out that theory. The other possibility, given Brian's strange behavior and the missing bottle of Tylenol PM, is that Brian took his own life. But according to Rusty, the singer of the band, Brian had expressed strong feelings against suicide.
Brian was a firm believer that if you commit suicide, you go to hell. Rot in hellfire.
Brian's brother Adam also believes suicide is unlikely.
You don't take your life if you have something else out there. He had his family, he had his friends down here. He had a lot.
And when Officer Deo talks to Poison Control, she discovers that the amount of Tylenol PM left in the bottle was not enough to kill Brian. With no physical evidence pointing to suicide or a voluntary disappearance, Officer Deo has little to go on. Brian Barton has now been missing for 10 days. His father, JB, and brother Adam have come to Seattle to help with the investigation. They begin by visiting Brian's apartment with Officer Deo. Immediately, Officer Deo senses that something is not right in the apartment.
The environment in that apartment, in Brian's apartment that day, you could feel the tension. You could feel the electricity in there, and the vibe or the feelings in there was just something happened there.
Officer Deo begins scanning the room for clues.
Does it look like there's been a struggle? Is there anything, maybe anything on the wall, a mark on the wall, maybe blood, maybe a hole in the wall, anything that would just, indicate anything that might have gone wrong?
And then, she notices something strange about the screen door, which is sitting off its tracks on the back porch.
The aluminum frame was bent probably about a 30-degree angle.
Suddenly, Officer Deo's investigation takes a turn.
When I saw the screen door in that condition in Brian's apartment, I thought a struggle had ensued. Something had occurred in that apartment.
Coming up, band members find themselves at the center of the investigation into Brian's disappearance.
Went from Brian being missing to now like I'm a suspect for murder. It was very intense.
Brian Barton's friends and family have been searching for him across the Seattle area for 10 days, but they haven't found a single sign of his whereabouts. Now, Officer Darlene Deo is visiting his apartment, and she thinks she may have stumbled on a major clue that might point to possible foul play.
And I noticed the screen door was bent and off. It was sitting on the patio. And I asked the young people in the room, the band members, hey, what happened to the door?
But according to Officer Deo, they can't offer a good answer.
I don't know. So, well, you guys live here. You don't know what happened to the door? I don't know. It was just like that, when we got home.
To Officer Deo, Brianna's and the bandmates' behavior is evasive and highly suspicious.
They didn't look at me directly. When they did, they couldn't hold that look for very long. It seemed that they were looking at someone sideways or behind me. At that time, I didn't know who that person was.
The person turns out to be Dylan Lorem, Brian's friend and the bass player of the band.
Now, he was rather nice to me for the most part, but he was sort of like, when you looked at other people around him, sort of like he commanded an era of, you know, intimidation.
I felt that the band members, each individual I was speaking to, including Brianna, were checking with this guy. The warning flags were up and they were flying high, and I knew something had happened.
Officer Deo is convinced that the bandmates are hiding something.
I believe that all of Brian's friends and band members collaborated their stories in an effort to ward off law enforcement, ward off any detection, because those band members, some of them, maybe all of them, know exactly what happened to Brian. They just don't want to tell us about it.
But at this point, the police still don't have much to go on. The broken screen door alone is not sufficient evidence to name anybody a suspect. And Brian's family is beginning to lose hope that he is still alive.
I think for a long time I thought he would just come home. But then as things went on, I'm like, that, you know, he wouldn't do this. Something has happened to him.
1 month has now passed since Brian went missing, and there are no new leads on the case. But then, one of the band members begins to grow suspicious.
I started to think that whatever happened that night, maybe some of my band members were involved in it. And that really freaked me out.
Rusty's suspicions force him to make a painful decision.
And that's why I quit the band.
According to Rusty, the other 3 band members become angry that he quit, which leads Dylan to post an ominous picture on a friend's MySpace page.
A picture that he had taken to glorify himself or send a message or whatever.
The picture is of Dylan, also known as Tank, holding a shotgun pointed directly at the camera. Dylan also makes a separate post that reads, "Rusty is ending my band. Ending him is my payback."
I started being afraid of my safety once I got the picture of Tank with the shotgun and all the threats. And that's when I contacted the detective.
Rusty takes the picture of Dylan to the Federal Way Police Department to show Officer Deo.
And you could tell this kid was scared. And I asked him why he would be scared. And he said, well, I left the band. And Dylan's mad. And I thought right away, Brian left the band. Was Dylan mad then? What happened?
But according to Dylan, the picture was just a harmless prank.
I mean, if I had really done something to Brian, would I just go and post up a picture like that the next day? It's absurd to me.
Still, Dylan's MySpace post only increases Officer Deo's suspicions.
Someone in that band knows what happened, and they don't want to share it. They don't want us to know. They don't want to suffer the consequences. But boy, Brian sure did, didn't he?
But without any physical evidence, Officer Deo's hunches lead nowhere. In May, the missing person case of Brian Barton is finally assigned to a detective at the Federal Way Police Department. But before Officer Deo turns over the reins, she gets a strange call from one of the band members.
I believe it was Ryan. Said he was moving out, and everyone boogied out of the apartment.
And as Ryan explains, he isn't the only band member with an itch to leave town. Apparently, Dylan has already moved to Los Angeles, just 2 months after his friend went missing. But according to Dylan, there's nothing suspicious about his move.
I went to LA because I had an offer from a friend to do some recordings. It was no secret I was going to LA. You know, I let everybody know. I told everybody, I told all the friends, you know what I mean? But it was not like, you know, I'm trying to escape from anything. It was, you know.
In fact, Dylan says he tried to call the Federal Way Police numerous times.
If somebody would have said, hey, Dylan, we need to question you, I would have been all like, okay, let's go. I wanted that, to be honest with you. because I wanted to, give my side of the story.
But according to Dylan, no one at the police department will talk to him, and the accusations are starting to take their toll.
I started being very alienated, and, like a lot of people I thought were my friends, turned out not to be my friends. Went from Brian being missing to now, like, I'm a suspect for murder. It was very intense.
The detectives in charge of Brian's case are finally ready to ramp up the investigation, and they begin by bringing in potential suspects for questioning.
In this case, we really didn't have a suspect. We had more persons of interest. Brianna and Ryan and Dylan, everyone seemed to point us in the direction of those three as knowing who or what may have happened to Brian.
It was Dylan who had argued with Brian about quitting the band and posted threatening messages to Rusty. And even though Ryan and Brianna lived in the apartment with Brian, they were unable to tell Officer Deo how the screen door was damaged.
The first active step that I took is I went out and contacted his girlfriend, Brianna Duvall, and asked her if she'd come down station and do an interview.
Brianna is unprepared for the visit.
Came to my house and knocked on the door, and I was kind of in my pajamas, and get yourself together, you're going to the police station right now. It was 5 in the morning. They came and dragged me out of bed.
Detective Laird takes Brianna into a room at the police department headquarters, recording her interview on a hidden camera.
I told him what I told him, and I felt like it was okay, But little did I know I was like one of the suspects, and with no reason.
Brianna tells police again about the events leading up to March 10th.
2 days before Brian was missing, he broke up with me, quit the band, and then the day before he was missing, called his friends.
Detectives also interview Brian's friends and other bandmates, except for Dylan, who is still in LA.
My impression of Brianna, Ryan, and Dylan was that they all were kind of pointing fingers at each other as to what could have possibly happened to Brian. If something foul play had taken place, they felt that either Brianna had done it or Dylan and Ryan had probably done it.
In fact, some of Brian's other friends seem to point fingers at Dylan as well, if only because of his size.
When the police were interviewing us, one of the questions was if anyone could have killed Brian, who could it have been?
Would you feel that there was anybody in your group of people that was capable of doing it?
And I think the majority of people said Dylan, based on the fact that he was a big guy.
Detectives take their next step, thoroughly searching Brian, Brianna, and Ryan's apartment.
So they contacted the manager at the apartment complex, and they went to the apartment and checked it out.
Detectives hope it's not too late to find some relevant shred of evidence. Coming up, detectives come upon a shocking new clue.
There was some kind of body that had been buried in that area.
The Federal Way Police believe that 2 of Brian's bandmates, Ryan and Dylan, and Brian's fiancée, Brianna, may know more than they are saying about Brian's disappearance. And now that Ryan has vacated Brian's old apartment, detectives are able to inspect the property for any signs of foul play without a warrant.
When I went to the apartment, we started looking around, just looking for any kind of fresh paint or anything that would show some kind of struggle.
If there was violence, if something happened in the apartment, can we find anything that can connect that? Can we connect the dots in any way?
But the apartment isn't the only place detectives are looking for clues. With more and more suspicion focusing on Dylan and Ryan, police decide to search Dylan's grandmother's property. It's where the band used to practice, and where Dylan and Ryan claim to have been on the night of Brian's disappearance.
When I was at the apartment at the same time, Detective Wells and several other detectives were at Dylan's grandma's house just outside of Bellevue.
Detectives bring cadaver dogs to the property, and they're looking for one thing: the body of Brian Barton.
They had dogs, and they were going to search the property, and he would get back to me. I was like panicked.
Dylan can hardly believe what's happening.
I was guilty until proven innocent, you know? I mean, like, everybody had thought that I had done it.
But then, a cadaver dog zeroes in on a patch of ground in the backyard.
The cadaver dog had hit on a site that had been disturbed and recently dug up.
And when a cadaver dog hones in on a specific spot, it usually means one thing.
There was some kind of body that had been buried in that area.
Meanwhile, back at the apartment on Southwest Campus Drive, Detective Laird makes another discovery. A large stain in the carpet.
My initial thought on the stain is that it was possibly blood.
Detective Laird and his partner conduct a quick field test.
And the initial field test did come back positive for blood.
But Detective Laird still needs the Washington State Crime Lab to verify the findings with a more extensive test. If these findings come back positive, they could be the linchpin of the investigation.
I thought, you know, this was going to be something that would tell us if there was some kind of foul play and give us some evidence to start understanding maybe what had happened to Brian.
Detectives now wonder, did bandmates Dylan and Ryan possibly murder Brian Barton in the apartment and bury his body on the property of Dylan's grandmother in Bellevue? Or was there an altercation that resulted in an accidental death, which Dylan, Ryan, and Brianna are now covering up? For Brian's family, the answer could bring even greater despair.
I mean, it's like your worst nightmare. You know, you kind of like try to think about it, and then you're like, okay, no, I'm just gonna wait till I hear from them.
The news also increases the suspicions of Brian's friends.
At first, I didn't think Dylan had anything to do with it, but the fact that the police were involved and had gone to his grandma's house where they practiced with cadaver dogs, it just made me wonder.
The Washington State Mobile Crime Lab tests the carpet, the pad, and the concrete floor of the living room in the apartment. And all three tests come up negative. There is no trace of human blood in the stains.
At that time, it was very frustrating because we weren't able to find any more evidence of any kind of struggle in the apartment.
Meanwhile, police find out that the patch of disturbed earth does contain a body, but not that of Brian Barton.
A family dog died, and we had buried it in the back, and obviously the cadaver dogs had found it or smelled the dog out.
The next day, Maureen follows up with police.
I said, what'd you find? And he goes, oh no, it was a dog. I was like, okay, that's good, but then I still have no answers.
With no more leads to follow, the search for Brian Barton, whether he's dead or alive, goes cold.